Hello, welcome to Stretch with Dave. I'm Dave. Today we are doing hip mobility. I have my chair here. So I want to take another large area that gets tight in a lot of people and just focus on that today. Especially nowadays, people are sitting now more than ever. We're going to focus on the hips. And as we go through this, you'll start to realize, how many different muscles get tight, get weak from sitting, or are, how much is actually attached to our hip joint. So we're just going to start off with some simple dynamic moves, and then we are going to go into our more static stretches. So we're going to start with open the gate, close the gate. So I lift my knee up, out. That's opening the gate. Up, in, close the gate. Now we're just going to bring it around town going left to right here. Try to keep your balance. Try to stay looking forward, right? Like the gate doesn't have to turn to open, right? Like the door is just open. The frame itself doesn't move. So try to keep that in mind. We just want the hips moving here. Keep your balance as best as you can. All right, so we're just going to go into some simple leg swings here. So I'm going to use my chair, and then I can hinge. Maybe this angle is probably best. Bring you right here. I'm going to hinge at my hips. So I have my right hand on my chair, and then I'm just going to swing my leg back and forth. There's some opening in the hips. Getting some extra movement in there, and we'll switch sides. Again, I just hinge at the hips a little bit because I'm tall, and my chair is not a throne, so it's not very high. So I'm just hinging at the hips to allow myself clearance and give myself that stability. Some people can do this balancing. I'm not one of those people. That's okay. Pretty hard to balance like this. All right, now that we've done forward and back, we are going to do side to side. So same thing, I'm just hinging to reach my chair. I'm going to start with my left, and I'm just going across the front of my right leg and out with my left leg. You might feel your other leg working to keep your balance. And again, you can go slow with this too, right? You don't need to be going as fast as I am. You don't need to go super slow either. Just find your own pace there. We'll switch sides. You can even use two, right? You don't need to use just one hand on the chair. You can use two if you find that helps you balance a little bit better. You can feel sort of the groin muscles warming up, the hip abductors, just sort of like the outside of your hips warming up. Now, we're going to go into the forward fold combo. And why we do this is a dynamic stretch for the hamstrings, and the hamstrings connect with that hip joint in the back. And we're going to come up, and we'll just do the full combo just because as we do this side lean, you start to feel, the lats maybe a little bit, but also that QL, or your quadratus lumborum, which is also attached to the hip, starts to warm up. We're going to do that 2 more times. This time I'm pushing down on the fingers instead of pulling back on them. So the hip is a very complicated, joint. It's ball and hip joint, or bone socket joint. It has a lot of different muscles going into it. So we did our forward fold combo. Now we're going to do our child's pose because, again, that's going to stretch our back as well as our abdomen, which is attached to the hip. So I get on the ground on my knees, push my hips back, hands come forward, and then I just move into that cobra position where I press my hips into the ground, lift my chest up, and then on my breath, I can continually move through that. Might find one area tighter than the other. For most people, the child's pose is going to feel better. But people still have, tight abdomen just because, so you might think that you have a weak abdomen. We're going to go to our cat cow now. You might think you have a weak abdomen, and you might, but that can still be tight. So I arch into the cat, tuck my chin in, bring my chin to neutral, nice flat spine. That's our cow. We're just going to continually move through there. Now, I want you to take note of what areas are tight for you because that's going to be where you're going to want to focus your stretches. Some stretches are going to be better for you. Some are, they're going to feel fairly easy or just not beneficial. That's why it's important to take note. Okay, so we're done on the ground. We're going to take a seat in our chair. Always seems a little counterintuitive in a stretch video. But we're going to take our left leg, and we're going to cross it over our right, and we just slightly lean forward. So normally we do the figure 4 maybe on the ground, or we'll do a pigeon pose. This is just a modified version of that. A little simpler, can be done while you're doing your work, whatever that may be. Whether you're sitting at a crane, whether you're at home in your office, whether you're on site in an office or in a pulpit, you can always do this stretch. And it's a good time too to just take a few deep breaths, relax, recenter, relieve some stress. Switch sides. Everybody's got a bit of stress in their days, and it's important that we decompress a little bit, let that go. Not always healthy to hold on to that. All right, now we're going to stand up as our only seated stretch. We're going to do our chair hamstring, so I'm going to go with my left leg on the chair, toe pointed towards my shin, and I can slightly lean forward if I want to intensify that stretch a little bit. And we're going to turn our torso towards our left leg, the leg that's on the chair, and you can feel how that migrates the stretch. And then we'll turn our right foot out and our torso out away from the leg that's on the chair, opening up. And you can feel how this is getting a little bit more of that, those hip adductors a little closer to the hip on that hamstring there. If we're focusing on stretching the hamstrings, we'll switch sides. If we're focusing on stretching the hamstrings, the toe pointed towards the shin is actually not the most important thing because that's when we stretch more of the calf. So if we're focused more on the hip area, we can actually forget about the toe point, just keep the leg straight and hinge a little further forward, and you can feel how that will migrate the stretch up. If I point my toe towards my shin and lean forward, that brings it a little bit more towards the knee as the part that's stretching closer for the hamstring. So you can sort of play with that as you will, right? We're going to turn our torso towards the right now. I'm just going to recenter myself here. And then we'll open up our torso. And if you have tight hamstrings, stretch your hamstrings the best you can. I like to still point my toe because, I'm going to stretch the calf as well, which if I do that, I'm going to be helping out my knees, which if I'm helping out my knees, it's going to help out my hips. So you don't always have to worry about that, but just a neat little trick that you can have in your toolbox. All right, so this chair hip flexor can be done on a couch as well, which I find it a little easier on a couch. You certainly don't want to do this on a chair with wheels or that pivots freely. And then you can also do this on the ground. So this is a modification of the half kneel hip flexor stretch. So what I'm going to do is I got my leg on my chair. I'm just going to drop my knee down and bring my torso up. And now I'm stretching out my hamstring here. I'm really loading this leg too. So you get a little bit of an isometric strengthening exercise, but just try to keep those hips neutral. And I do that by elevating my spine. If you don't like that, again, half kneel hip flexor. In that half kneel position, I stretch up like this. All right. We'll switch sides. If you want to do it from the couch, hopefully I'm not cut off too much here, but it's the same thing. Is you just get the leg on the seat of the couch, pop out, torso nice and neutral. You can get that arm up if you want to increase that stretch a little bit more. But this is a great one. You're sitting on a couch after a day of working, you're watching TV, you feel a little tight, you can stretch out the hips. Really easy to do, right? Do it during commercials, although, commercials rarely exist anymore. Do it when the Netflix is changing episodes, I don't know. All right, so our chair triangles. Right hand on the chair, right foot forward, left hand on the inside of the left knee. We're going to turn and open up. Now we're doing this because the hips also rotate. We have to keep that in mind. If you play any sports at all, we want to make sure our hips can rotate. The hips are where the power is generated for most sports. And I don't think you can throw a sport out there in which there's not a little bit of rotation. We'll go left hand on the chair, right hand on the outside of the right knee, and we'll reverse it. Opening up the other way. All right. Left hand stays on the chair, left leg forward. We're going to open up. And it's not just for performance we want our hips to be able to rotate either. We want to be able to move throughout our day where we can turn, where we can pivot, where we can rotate, switch. We don't want to be a rigid Frankenstein or whatever, where it hurts to turn and pick things up, where it hurts to rotate our hips. The more mobile we are, less likely we are for injury, less likely we already have those pains and sores. All right, so we're going to go with the standing quad stretch as well. Real simple, real classic, right? I'm going to use the chair to help me balance, but I'm just going to grab my left foot here, my left leg. And something that you can do here, right, is if I move my knee more in line with my other right knee there, or under my hip, that moves the stretch, right? If I want to get more high in that hip flexor, I can rotate out a little bit more. If I want to focus more on getting sort of closer to that bottom of the knee there, I can keep that more in line with my other knee. So we can switch sides. I'm going to use the back of the chair here just because it's a little higher for me. And it's a better angle for the camera. And I also grab the bottom of my foot, right? I don't grab my ankle. Yeah, if I want to, I can change where that stretch is just based on coming out, leaning forward. Yeah, this is something you can move through too, right? If you want to make that easier, you can always do that on the ground with a band. All right, and then just our standing side lean, because I think we're a little bit over time. So standing side lunge lean, take an exaggerated step to the left, push our hips to the left, right leg stays straight. You feel that stretch on the inside of the right thigh. Again, this is a part where if you're just holding it, you can practice your rotations too, right? And we'll switch sides. So I'm going to take an exaggerated step to the right, push my hips to the right, left leg stays straight. And if I want to, I can continue to rotate. Get a little bit of extra movement in the stretch while still remembering I have to keep this leg straight and continue to lean. And with all these, right, you can always turn a static stretch dynamic if you just want to sort of lean between the two. That is all we have for you today. I hope this helps. I hope you start to realize how much is affected when you sit, how many muscles are tied to the hip, and how these can get tight. And these are the things that you can do to improve your hip mobility and your overall quality of life. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next video.